after last week, a little bit sluggish at times.
Yeah, in the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just a little off. A couple of things kept us from, probably 3 touchdowns. We were down there. But I didn't feel like we were crisp. There was just a different guy here, a different guy there. A couple of little breakdowns, but that's offensive football. It looks ugly when you got one guy going the wrong way or missing his assignment and get a quarterback hit and interception, and that's the kind of things that happen. But we just got to learn from it and grow and move on.
You had some protection issues up front last game. What kind of things do these guys need to do to change their best for this week?
Yeah, I think one was, we just got to get better. We got to continue to get better up front, and be able to do it. But one of the things was a pickup of a pressure, that got us, same pressure got us twice, and then we had another one where, the young kid at running back, he missed the protection thing on the pressure. So we just, mastering our protections a little bit. Give credit to Miami of Ohio. They had a couple pressures that we hadn't seen yet that they used on us, and it worked for them.
Have you seen the freshman receivers progress from game to game so far?
Yeah, just continuing to get better every day, change their best on a daily basis. That's what we demand, from our culture and our program here, and that's what I've seen of them so far, is just continuing to grind every day. It's not perfect. Each game, we look at, okay, what do we really got to focus on with the younger guys? What are the key things we got to focus on with them? Because you can't fix you can't emphasize everything at one time, with them. So each guy has his own couple of things that we want to see get better at each week, and I've noticed an improvement in it. And just because you're improving in something doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to show up immediately on the game field. You got to do it right on the practice field first. I've said this before. It'll never happen on the game field if you're not doing it right on the practice field. But once you do it on the practice field, it doesn't always translate immediately to the game field.
You get Ibrahim back. How will that help you guys' offense?
Well, he's a good back, and just to have some more depth at the position. Bryce carried the ball, I don't know how many times last week. 33. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask of any back, let alone a true freshman, to carry the ball that many times in a game.
You take anything from last year's game against Maryland in preparation for this one?
I think that, I felt like last year their head coach was running the defense, and so I look at last year's game and what they did against us, but there's also a different guy running their defense now, and you can see when you look at what they've done their first 3 games, it's the same package, but what he likes is maybe a little bit different than what, Coach Durkin liked necessarily. So, but we looked at it and certainly worked on the things that we felt like hurt us in last year's game, that's for sure.
One of Annex's calling cards in fall camp was his deep ball, and it hasn't been there so far. Does that surprise you a little bit?
It surprised me? No. Would I like to see us hit some of them? Yeah. But the way I look at it is we're due. Because I watched him throw the ball in training camp, those deep balls, and, he did a really good job with them. So I feel like I know where his percentage is going to be, so we're due to get to that percentage now. It's like, I feel like it's like a batter. He's a 300 hitter, it. And over the course of the season, at the end of the year, he's going to bat 300. And he's got a low batting average. If you're the manager, you're like, we're going to get a hot streak. We're going to hit 600 over the next 16 games or something like that. So we've continued to work really hard on it in practice. And again, I really felt like the last 2 weeks in practice, he's done a great job throwing the deep balls in practice. And so it's just a matter of time for us to be able to translate that over to the game.
How have you assessed your assessment on the freshmen through the first 3 games? Just what's your assessment on them?
Again, I think they've exceeded my expectations of where I thought they'd be at right now, but they've got a long way to go. And there's still some growing pains that are going on, with it, but that's to be expected with it. But what I love about them is that their attitude, and to come into this program and the stage not be too big for them, and them to come to work every day on a daily basis, and change their best, and I love that. That's easy to say, but in order to get better every day, you got to pay a price, and you got to be willing to work really hard, and to be able to do that, is impressive for these young guys, but that's what the program demands.
Do you feel this year's 3-0 start is a lot different than last year's?
I think we're a better offense than we were last year at this point in time. I think we have more potential right now than I felt like about last year's offense at this point in time. So I feel better about us. It's hard to compare. Every team's different. Every year is different, and you never know. After the first 3 games, you're not really sure about who you played, how good is who you played. But time will tell. But I don't. That's not something I lay awake at night thinking about, to be honest with you. But I now that you asked me the question, I know I feel better about where we're going with this group than I did at this time last year. I felt like we had some real weaknesses, major weaknesses at this time last year, and it was going to catch up to us at some point.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for your young guys as they head into Big Ten? Or is it
I think
status quo?
I think it's just the ability to continue to stay focused and get better every day. And again, like I said already today, that's a price that comes with that. To come out there and work and concentrate and because in order to have the right habits and instincts, it's not repetitions that makes you perfect. It creates habits. It's got to be the correct repetitions. And that's probably the biggest thing they're learning, the freshmen, is, the attention to detail that you need to have on the practice field, and that you have to, it's in high school you can get away with, hey, this is practice tempo, and then game time I'll turn it up. Well, here there's so much for them to learn, we have to create a game type atmosphere in practice, so they can develop these habits and turn them into instincts for them.
You've had a lot of success moving Tyler Johnson inside. What did you see on the practice field that led you to the decision to slide him inside?
Well, I think it was more what I saw out of the other guys. That I just felt like all along that Tyler, can play inside and outside, and which we did last year with him, and we were doing this year. I just felt like maybe some of the other guys are better suited to be outside than they are inside. So we just used a little more with him inside this past week, and he's our best receiver. I think that's clear, and there was going to be some more opportunities for that slot against that particular team. So we kind of went with it, but he'll play inside and outside, and we'll continue to use him in the same way.
What will you expect from him, going from last year's Big Ten season to this with a little more help on the wide receivers end? Do you think he'll be able to be a little more consistent?
Well, I think that's him, and it doesn't matter who's around you. It's the consistency, and I think that's where he's improved the most since last season is his consistency. He's been able to, starting in spring ball, just consistently put elite days together where he's just grinding every day and getting better. And his focus and concentration and some of the things that were his weaknesses, he was turning them into strengths. The things that were his strengths, he was making them even stronger. And it's a tribute to him and Matt Simon, just their ability to work and grind. But the people around him, the circumstances don't dictate your behavior. You know, if you're elite every day at everything you do.
Got time for one more question?
Maryland's defensive line has got some pretty big bodies up front. When you look at the challenge ahead for your offensive line and tight ends, how steep is the hill?
Yeah, it's clearly that they're the best defense we've seen to date. You know, I thought leading into the Fresno State game that we were going to face a good defense. These guys are clearly better, so it's a great challenge for us. You know, and I'm expecting us to compete our butts off and to play well.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you very much.